Now, otherwise in the world, people in sports pay attention to breathing, right? When you push out the weight, you breathe out. Inhale, inhale. The idea of paying attention to flexing. And medical doctors, when you're in the OR, think breathing is important because they think you died if you stop breathing. So the idea of breathing and being part of being alive is sort of ingrained into our Western style of thinking, but it goes even deeper than that. The idea of breathing is locked into our language. Now, I see people here from several different countries from Japan. How about Europeans? Do you have Europeans in here? Mm-hmm. Europeans, Africans, Asians, anybody else?
South America.
South America, okay. In our languages, search for words that mean the same thing. In English, when I say, gee, look at this tapestry up here, what an inspiration. Or I say, the artist was very much inspired. Well, the word inspire means to breathe in, okay? Are we saying literally, boy, she held her breath a long time? Or we could say, I'm so inspired, but we could say, that takes my breath away. Now, what are we saying? What are we saying when we use the word to be inspired? It's almost as though we're saying it fills me up with creativity, or she must have been filled with creativity. And you could sort of go just a little bit further and say, maybe it fills you up with creative spirit. This idea of being inspired fills you up in some way. Now, what is it that is being filled up here? I think this whole idea of paying attention to breathing is a metaphor. Now, our mantra is that we are more than our physical bodies. And I think this idea of paying attention to our breathing, normally in unconscious activity, is a metaphor of paying respect to that part of us that's the non-physical part. It's a metaphor for doing that. Maybe. Just an interesting thing. Now, when I talk about paying attention to, I'm talking about sort of ceremonially, like a tea ceremony. It's always done in the same way. It is always symbolic. Every motion that is done, every grace that is paid, has symbolism behind what is happening there. So too does paying attention to your breathing have symbolism behind it and to what that means. Now, when you first had an exercise here, somewhat like when Bob, said, focus your mind on your left foot and relax. There was a point in time in an exercise where Bob said, take in a big breath and hold it. Now relax and breathe normally. Take in a big breath and hold it, so forth and so on. That went away very quickly to be replaced by something called resonant tuning. But look at the mechanics of what you're doing. Take in a big breath. Mechanically, it's the same thing. The idea of paying attention to, being in control of, ceremoniously doing this thing, it's all about breathing. Now, I know some of the trainers talk about pay attention to the vibrations in your body. Try to change the chakra levels at which you feel this vibration. Can you see colors change as you breathe? Try changing the vowel sounds, A, E, I, O, U. Try changing the vowel sounds in your chanting, see what that changes. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying here, just the simple mechanical fact, you're purposefully, with purpose, taking in a big breath, is regulating your breathing processes. So we've talked about two ingredients in this Hemi-Sync process, one being the physical relaxation, the next being this idea of paying attention to your breathing. And I want to stop and say here in sort of a joking manner, remember my name is Skip, and I'm saying that in a joking manner because I don't want you to skip over these two ingredients. If you were making a chocolate cake, you wouldn't leave out the eggs just because, what the heck, let's leave the eggs out. You wouldn't substitute margarine for genuine butter. You wouldn't leave that out. If you're making this great chocolate cake, you would make sure you got all your ingredients just right. So those steps have been put in there for a reason. And I do know that some of you, you're laying in your check unit and say, man, when I get through with this stupid chanting, we can get on to level 7. But I'm suggesting that you think about this differently, that they are part of the ingredients, part of the process here. The third ingredient that we want to talk about is that of setting your intent. Now, every time I give this talk, I try to think of a big word way to explain how important setting your intent is. You must set your intent. Your intent, what you carry as your intent, determines the experience you're going to have. It is your intent that determines the experience you're going to have. Now, if everybody says, oh, I agree with that, that's wonderful, what a wonderful knowledge, oh, I'll go home now. It's not quite that simple, because we are complex psychological human beings. When I say with a big strong voice, it's my intent to do this, I know intellectually that probably about 15% of my awareness is the awake ego part. And about 85% is unconscious. The habits and things I do every day, breathing, how I tie my shoes, all that is pre-programmed unconscious activity. A big part of what I am, unconscious activity. This little tiny awareness part of me up here that thinks it's all there is actually only about 15% of what I am. So in this little tiny baby 15%, I say, I intend to do this. Or I'm laying in my check unit and we're going whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I intend to get out of my body. And that other big daddy unconscious part says, you're not going to die. You're going to stay right here. You're not going to do that. But it's unconscious, so you don't know it's saying that. That's why it's unconscious. So no matter how much you scream and yell in your conscious mind about your intent, there's that unconscious protector part of you. Now, that's not the end of it in terms of the complex human nature here, and we're only going to talk about a couple of things. Another one is the fact that there are many more parts of me than just Skip given the lab tour lecture. I have many personalities of this guy named Skip, many aspects or expressions of this guy named Skip. I'm Grandpa Skip. I have 8.5 grandchildren, so I'm Grandpa Skip. Okay. My son got married on Valentine's Day down in Florida, so I was Skip the dad, father of the groom. When I'm at home, I'm Skip the dishwasher. I get up first and make a coffee for my wife and stuff, so I'm Skip the percolator guy, or Skip the cook, or whatever you want to call him, okay? Sometimes I get to play racquetball. Now that's a different guy. Because that's Skip on the racquetball court. Don't mess with him, right? I have many expressions of who I am. So when I say, I intend to do this, what about all the other parts of me? Did they get to vote on this? I want to go play racquetball. I want to go see my grandchildren. I want to see my grandchildren. They didn't get to vote on this. So we're sort of, as much as I'd like to say with all the power in the world, it's your intent that's important. Your intent creates your experience. Except it's a little more complicated than that, because your intent is sort of hard to nail down. We could get a little esoteric and say, what about your karmic intent? And if you don't speak karma, you could say, what about my divine right purpose for being here? What am I doing here on earth? What am I supposed to be doing? And how can I best achieve that? So if I have an intention to go get just one more ice cream cone, maybe that doesn't serve my divine right purpose so well. So how strong can that